Just to recap, the Biden administration kicked off the marijuana rescheduling process in October of 2022 when President Biden directed federal agencies to review cannabis's status under the Controlled Substances Act. Once again, alcohol and tobacco are not on the controlled substances list. They are descheduled substances. Just for context there. The Department of Health and Human Services later recommended moving it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, a shift that would ease research barriers and some criminal. Actually, it would only ease research barriers from what I understand. And that's potentially, I think, also the biggest potential outcome, and we'll talk about that here in just a moment, is the idea that businesses would be able to make traditional tax deductions. So that has, since that recommendation, the process has stalled with little public movement until recently. We'll look at this small interaction that you may have seen reported. We, like I said, have been a little bit behind. This interaction between President Donald Trump and the press has sort of put wind back in the sails with regard to the rescheduling of cannabis. It's been the talk of the town lately, and it's all a result of this moment between President Donald Trump and the press. Let's watch.
Any other questions, sir? There is reporting that the administration is going to reclassify marijuana. Would that send mixed messages that if marijuana is okay, some drugs are okay, but we're trying to clean up crime? How do they go hand in hand?
We're only looking at that. That's early, but somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it. Some people hate it. Some people hate the whole concept of marijuana because if it does bad for the children, it does bad for people that are older than children. But we're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination over the next few weeks. And that determination hopefully will be the right one. It's a very complicated subject, the subject of marijuana. I've heard great things having to do with medical, and I've had bad things having to do with just about everything else. But medical and, for pain and various things, I've heard some pretty good things. But for other things, I've heard some pretty bad things. The other part of your question,
So he says he's heard some good things about medical, but with regard to anything else, he's heard some bad things. But it sounds like they're going to make a decision based on that statement within the next few weeks. Which that was about 2 weeks ago at this point. 2 weeks ago from Tuesday, the 26th. So I believe that happened on August 12th. And so, it's just over a couple of weeks. So if you were to ask me, and I think somebody commented earlier, when do I think the decision is going to be made? I don't know. I guess next week, probably. But that's if they stick to their word of the next few weeks. Let's not forget that they've said since the very beginning that this presidential administration has said that they would be like open and transparent about the Epstein documents. And that hasn't happened. So, I'm taking all of their words for what they're worth, and I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not sure when or if it's going to happen. I will say that there's been a lot of noise on social media lately, where people were speculating that it was going to happen today. A lot of people were speculating that it was going to happen today. Unless I missed something, I don't know, Google folks, did it happen while we were live? I from what I understand, it has not happened. Oh, wait a minute. It just I'm joking. No, but literally, I'm looking at, I just refreshed my Twitter, and there is a person on Twitter saying, well, they're saying sort of the opposite of what I just said. They're saying we received no reliable intel. I guess I wasn't saying it was reliable intel. I was just saying there's a lot of chatter online. This person, their name is Anthony Martinelli. I believe they're the founder and editor-in-chief of the marijuanaherald.com. They said, we received no reliable intel that a rescheduling announcement was definitely coming today, despite persistent rumors. That's what I was talking about. So apparently they've also seen the rumors I was seeing, only that it would happen this week or next week. Oh, so he's actually saying that it may. So Chris, to your question, It may happen this week or next week. He said, if there's no announcement by next Friday, which I find unlikely, then I'd be concerned the decision was delayed. That's Anthony Martinelli from the marijuanaherald.com. So I don't know. I'm just interested to see what comes out of this. I obviously am a deschedule person. I don't mean to say obviously. If you didn't know that about me, I think cannabis should be descheduled. But it seems like what they're looking at as a first step is rescheduling. So let's take a look at some of the reactions. The Chicago Sun-Times recently reported on this. I'm putting their report on screen right now. We'll have it linked in the show notes. Cannabis industry leaders in Chicago hope President Donald Trump keeps his word after recently saying that his administration was looking at reclassifying marijuana as a less dangerous drug. The report indicated that cannabis programs as they exist today would remain illegal under federal law. The report highlights that shifting marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug would remove a heavy tax burden on weed companies. Tiffany Chappell Ingram, executive director of the Cannabis Business Association of Illinois, said, "Our hope is that this administration finds the courage and leadership to act where others have failed." End quote. So for background, the report details the federal government has classified marijuana or cannabis as a Schedule 1 drug since 1970, when the Controlled Substances Act was signed into law. The Drug Enforcement Administration defines Schedule 1 drugs as highly addictive and having no medical use. The report also details that, quote, not all groups support shifting cannabis to Schedule 3. Kevin Sabet, president of the national organization Smart Approaches to Marijuana, said the change could lead to more crime, and he said he worries about the drug's potential negative effects. Folks, I recently had somebody that works alongside this guy, Kevin Sabet, on the show. If you'd like to check that out, you can reference the show notes. It's the episode with Luke, who opposes rescheduling. You can also go to colememo.com/Sam. It looks like in this report, which I've got on screen right now, he's saying rescheduling will roll out a giant welcome mat to all the dangerous criminal elements this administration is trying to stop. The president should reconsider that no major law enforcement, he said, the president should consider that no major law enforcement association supports scheduling marijuana down to 3 because it is a public safety and public health nightmare. That's Kevin Sabet's quote and stance on cannabis rescheduling. Once again, folks, we're live right now. So if you haven't yet, comment below. Do you think Schedule 3 is a good start? Do you think it's going to be rescheduled to Schedule 3? Would you prefer descheduling? I even saw a rumor online today that suggested that perhaps they would reschedule to Schedule 2. What do you think about that? Please comment below. I'm curious what you think. Here's the thing, folks. There are things in this report that concern me. And we'll get to that in a moment, just as an advocate. But let's keep it straight here for a moment. As we said earlier, from what I can gather, the most notable change that rescheduling would bring is that cannabis companies would no longer have that 280E tax burden. So as the report says, it would remove a tax burden that prohibits them from reporting ordinary business expense deductions from their taxable income. So that, according to a chief executive of the cannabis market research firm BDSA, companies could see up to $1 billion in savings by paying less in taxes. So, honestly, that's how the companies, I think, seem to be looking at this. There's a lot of talk about research and how it would ease burdens for creating, Schedule 3 drugs. I don't think these cannabis companies, and I don't mean to speak for all of them or paint with a broad brush, but complying with creating a drug that would be approved as a Schedule 3, like, I don't know. I just don't get the sense that it's as simple as their current business model. But these are the things that remain to be seen. This is why I think it's going to be interesting to watch all of this play out. Christopher Brady says anything but Schedule 1. Schedule 1 is the most inappropriate categorization. Christopher Brady says make alcohol Schedule 1. I don't know if I agree with that last comment, but I appreciate you commenting. It's always nice to have other people's thoughts and keep them coming, folks. I appreciate all of the comments. Drop them below. The report detailed that Tiffany Chappell Ingram, which, like I think I mentioned earlier, is from Cannabis Business Association of Illinois. Also, I think notable to mention that Tiffany used to work with the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Office, from what I understand. So, yeah, she used to actually regulate or work with the cannabis regulators for the state. Said that taking advantage of this tax treatment would, quote, go a long way, end quote, for cannabis businesses and for improving conditions in the industry, quote, especially in Illinois, where cannabis license holders face high taxes and regulatory burdens, end quote. Ingram was quoted as saying rescheduling would also ease some restrictions on cannabis research and banking, including opening access to traditional lines of financing and the ability to raise capital. So that's the one thing that remains unclear to me. Will it actually change anything with banking? I've heard different opinions on this. That yes, it would take away that 280E tax burden, but no, it would not mean that you could bank your cannabis money. It would not mean, I guess, that you could accept credit cards, for example. But I don't know. King Terps asks, do you think rescheduling will impact the requirements regarding pre-employment testing? I know a lot of companies do it purely for insurance purposes, especially in construction. I think that's a hard question to answer because, like in the state of Illinois, for example, the state law specifically says that companies can continue to preclude you or I guess use cannabis as a reason to not continue to employ somebody, from what I understand. So it's hard to answer that question. I think depending on if you are actually prescribed a cannabis-based medicine, that's when you might see that type of thing go away. I really think that the testing thing is really complicated. If you missed it, we did a segment on UIC Chicago. And sort of setting aside what went on at that lab, it just is, cannabis seems to be a complicated substance to test for. And they say, so lame, looking for a new position because I'm tired of my current role and have to take a break for probably 3 months. I'm so sorry. Yeah, that's a unfortunate place to be in. It's really unfortunate that as a country, we've just seemingly all agreed to hand over our biological samples and let companies know what we're doing in our personal time. My thing has always been, like, if you're too intoxicated to work, it's going to be obvious. Shouldn't need a test to prove it, but that's just me. That's just my commentary. Continuing with thoughts on cannabis rescheduling from those that are in the industry. George Archos, chief executive of Verano, one of the larger cannabis operators based in Chicago, said the company was encouraged. The Trump administration was reviewing cannabis reclassification. He said the move would be the, quote, first critical step at the federal level, end quote, to pave the way for further medical research and remove the, quote, onerous restrictions that inhibit the industry's growth. The report also detailed that George Archos provided a statement that said, quote, we hope to see the administration take decisive action to reschedule cannabis and finally allow America's next great homegrown industry to reach its full potential by serving patients, creating jobs, unlocking economic growth, and reversing the decades of harmful prohibitionist policies. So that was a statement by George Archos. And yeah, I mean, look, it's not that this doesn't sound good. I'm not trying to be like a contrarian. I just don't see how this industry fits into a Schedule 3 framework. But, we also never thought we'd see a Schedule 1 drug sold over the counter the way that it is, and allowing people to cultivate a Schedule 1 drug the way that we are in the limited forms that we are. But here we are. So, I don't know. Crazy things happen. Okay, here was the part that I thought would stand out to my listeners. Let's take a look. This section is called Medicinal Rebirth. And I just thought this was definitely notable for my listeners. Classifying marijuana as a Schedule 3 drug would be the next step in standardizing medicinal cannabis use and putting it on par with other accepted drugs. Jordan Tritt, once again, the executive of the cannabis market research firm BDSA, said. Industry leaders say the federal government would finally be recognizing the plant for the medicinal value it serves to the millions of Americans who use it to treat a variety of conditions such as chronic pain, anxiety, epilepsy, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Tritt said, and this is around the part that I thought would perk your ears, that the formal recognition could sprout more meaningful medicinal use, whereas in the past, medical legalization in states was seen as a gateway to legalizing recreational use. He said in a quote, "I think the medical side of cannabis is going to see like a big rebirth, and that fits in with insurance coverage and education with the physicians and medical community. But I think that's something that very, very few brands and companies are as a whole paying attention to and focused on." So I just thought that was really, really interesting. And sorry, I trailed off on that quote. He's basically saying that very, very few brands and companies are as a whole paying attention to and focusing on the health and wellness category, which is sort of what I was saying earlier. These companies seem to be, and again, I'm not trying to paint with too broad of a brush. I'm sure there's somebody watching right now and they're like, man, the shop that I go to, they have the best recommendations. They embody the spirit of the spirit of medical cannabis, and I have no complaints, and you couldn't take me to a better store if you wanted to. I hope that there's somebody out there like that, but I've been to better stores, I've been to bad stores too, and I guess my thing is there's no, I don't know. I just thought that would catch your attention. Again, just the idea that, especially when we're talking about pharmaceuticals and prescriptions and insurance coverage, like I'm not saying that I'm opposed to insurance coverage. Like, I think that there should be ways people should be able to grow up as much cannabis as they want. It should be given out for free, just like we do with tomatoes, right? That's the perfect world. I guess I'm not opposed to insurance covering it, but it just gets really complicated really quick. And I worry about all the red tape that comes when you get into that area. And I just wish that we could just simply start with descheduling the cannabis plant. And if people want to do other things with the cannabis plant, they can. But at the bare minimum, I think we should all have the right to grow, possess, and use as much as we want, need, or please. Again, there's been sort of a dust up these last few days on rescheduling. Those were some perspectives of people sort of in the industry. I want to play a clip that I recently heard, including some of some industry perspectives. Here's the clip.
Let's hear some more about the impact on the consumer, because like with the reclassification, how would that impact sort of the cost of these cannabis products? You started to talk about that, Akili. And then that trickle down potentially to consumers, because that's what people want to know. Is this going to cost me less, more? Is this a good thing? Should I be happy here?
Mm-hmm. Well, to the extent that it takes pressures off the business, we might have flexibility to lower prices. I'm not sure that it directly impacts those because the reason things are so expensive in Illinois is partially because the state taxes are just so enormously high.
Yeah.
And so that's really a state issue to act on.
Tiffany?
No, I think just adding on to Akili, I think that's right. And particularly in Illinois, we have some of the highest taxes in the state. I call it being in between the M&Ms of Missouri and Michigan.
Okay.
So we have a lot of carpetbaggers that go to New Buffalo, Michigan, to get cheaper cannabis, but that's in part due to how we're taxed. The other thing that's actually challenging the industry is the existential threat of sort of the federal loophole that, you know, many operators that are outside of the licensed industry, the intoxicating hemp industry. It's a loophole created by the 2018 Farm Bill, where you have consumers that are confused about, am I going into a real dispensary or am I going into a smoke shop that's holding itself up to be a dispensary? So that's another problem that the federal government had attempted to deal with recently, but has not yet.
Yeah, so no resolution on that?
No.
Just yet. What is the current environment like for the person listening who doesn't?
So Slono might comments, carpetbaggers? Really? Yeah, what do you guys think about the use of that phrase? I don't know if I know if there would be a modern way to use that term. Carpetbaggers meaning. Let's just do a little bit of Googling here. But before we do that, please, folks, let me know what you think about the use of that phrase and if that was what that means. What does that even mean? You're saying I'm going to Michigan to get access to a more variety of product at a cheaper price and I'm carpetbagging? I'll have to Google that here in a second. I don't even know what that means. But today and yesterday, so there's been a lot, like I said, there's been a lot of chatter around rescheduling. And I think one of the things I've been seeing shared, and I don't understand exactly how this happened, but apparently like somebody shared a live stream that looked like this, what you're seeing on screen right now, with some people that are pretty notable within the community, and they started sharing it. And people thought, I think this is where the rescheduling to Schedule 2 rumor came from. Again, it's very unclear to me, but apparently Bloomberg just posted it. And so I wanted to sort of acknowledge this as well. Again, I'm a little bit unclear as to, there's just been a lot of chatter, so it's hard to really gauge what exactly is happening. I'm just trying to share with you everything I'm seeing as it's happening, because I find it all interesting. So in case you're wondering, why there's so much chatter lately. So let's Google carpetbaggers, because I don't know. So carpetbagger, I put carpetbaggers meaning a political candidate who seeks election in an area where they have no local connections. Historically, it means a person from the northern states who went to the South after the Civil War to profit from Reconstruction. And, maybe this is what it's meant to mean. A person perceived as an unscrupulous opportunist. Unscrupulous opportunist. Having or showing no moral principles, not honest or fair. And a person who exploits interesting. Slonomite says carpetbagger is when you move to a different state to run for elective office. Oh yeah, that's what it said the first thing. Political candidate who seeks election. Maybe they did not mean to use that term. Maybe they meant to use like tax avoiders or something like that, because they were talking about people that go to Michigan for the lower taxes or the lower prices, because the taxes are actually just about the same. If you look at it, like people with medical cards in Illinois choose to go to Michigan, and they don't even have a tax. I think it's like 1%. You pay like a penny for a transaction, and they're still going to Michigan. It's that the prices are lower. The prices are lower before taxes. And I've had people on from companies in this state where I'm like, you have this product for sale at a dispensary here in Illinois. At the time, it was like $120 for one of them. that same exact product on sale in Michigan for $30 on the adult use side. I was getting it for $120 as a medical patient. Meanwhile, I could go to Michigan via adult use and get the same product for $30 a pop. And it's a difference in market dynamics. But it's really unfortunate. And I guess, yeah, I'm just trying to say that taxes could be lowered. And we discussed that on the show with economist Bo Whitney. I'll show you how to find that episode on screen right now. If you go to colememo.com and look up Bo, if I spell it right, Whitney, up in the top right-hand corner, it's episode 216, and he talks about how he advised the governor's office here in Illinois to lower taxes, and that by doing so, we could actually bring in more revenue. And they ultimately didn't agree to that. I think all they heard was lower taxes. No, we need this revenue. So folks, we got 56, a little bit over 50, looks like 56 people tuned into the stream. Drop your comments, hit that like button. We're talking about rescheduling cannabis right now. And to keep the ball moving, I'm going to show you, we mentioned them already, Jordan Davidson, who's been on this show more than a handful of times, went to the White House on August 14th, which was shortly after the rescheduling announcement was made. I think it's important to mention this because, well, people that don't believe that cannabis should be legal at all are going to the White House. According to their posts, they say great meeting at the White House today, and there they seem to be. I can't tell you where in the White House that is, but yeah, I just think that's really notable to mention, I mean to say. And I'm curious, like I say, what do you think about rescheduling? Comment below. It sounds like I would think it's going to be within the next week or so, but you never know. I'll believe it when I see it. Who knows what it's going to look like? That's what I think I find most interesting. Some of these people that talk about it online are like, well, the dispensaries are going to get a Schedule 3 license from the DEA. And I'm just like, I don't think that's going to happen, but we shall see. We shall see. Folks, we're going to keep everything rolling right here in the Cole Memo. If you haven't already, subscribe. You can subscribe to our show at colememo.com/subscribe. You'll get notifications via your email inbox. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter, which is, we've shared some of the stories that we're going over in today's broadcast on Twitter like weeks ago. So if you follow us on social media, that's a great way to sort of stay in the loop. And I guess I did have one last thought here. I thought this part of that clip was notable.
We're only looking at that. That's early, but somebody reported it, which is fine. We're looking at it. Some people like it.
When he says, somebody reported it, which is fine. I've seen some speculation online. I believe Brian Dombrowski is the person I've seen say this theory that that's an indication of him. It's actually not fine. He's actually a little bit maybe perturbed, upset. I don't know if that's the correct use of the word perturbed. He's upset that news broke, and it's not fine. And I thought that read on the situation, when I saw this happen, I was like, that seems weird the way that he said that. And Brian seems to agree. I've seen his speculation online that Trump actually is a little bit upset that this news broke the way that it did, which if you didn't know, I believe there was a Forbes article the weekend before. I believe this happened on a Monday, perhaps, maybe it was a Tuesday. But this Forbes article said, oh, he's considering reclassifying. There was a bunch of media pressure, and that's sort of how I believe that interaction ultimately ended up taking place. We're going to keep it moving right here on the Cole Memo. I'll be right back.